how my childhood bully became my biggest. My name is Catherine Archer, but for most of my life I was just Katie the crybaby. This story isn't about the bullying itself, it's about the why. The reason my entire childhood was a meticulously crafted hell. It starts with a ghost, my mother. She was a painter, all soft smiles and vibrant colors, who died when I was 7. Her absence left a hole in our house that my father, Arthur, tried to fill with work. And then Diana filled it with herself. She was polished, elegant, and her smile never quite reached her eyes. She moved in, redecorated my mother's studio, and brought a gift with her. Her niece, Jocelyn. The girl who would become my personal ghost, haunting every corner of my life until there was almost nothing of me left. At first, I was desperate for a friend. Jocelyn was everything I wasn't, confident, charismatic, with a sharp, knowing look that made you feel childish. Our friendship was a series of small, deniable crimes. She'd accidentally spill juice on my favorite drawing, the last one my mom helped me with, and say, "Oh, Katie, you're so clumsy," with such convincing concern. She'd borrow my toys and return them broken, sighing, "It was already like that." I was 7, confused. The adults saw 2 little girls, one bright and outgoing, the other quiet and withdrawn. They never saw the wolf hiding in plain sight, learning how to wear sheep's skin perfectly. I learned early that my truth was fragile, and Jocelyn held the hammer. The bullying didn't start with shoves in the hallway. It started with whispers. Jocelyn was a master of psychological warfare. She'd tell other kids I had a lying disease, that I made up stories for attention. She'd steal my homework and then, when I was frantic, produce it from her bag, saying, "You must have dropped it, you're so forgetful." She was systematically dismantling my credibility. My art was my only escape, my tether to my mother. I'd lose myself for hours drawing. Jocelyn would look at my sketches and say, "It's cute you still try. My aunt says real artists are born, not made." Every compliment was a blade, disguised as a caress. She was building a prison around me, and I was the only one who could see the bars. In high school, the stakes got higher. The state youth art competition offered a full scholarship to a prestigious summer program. It was my dream, my ticket out. I worked for months on my portfolio, a series of pieces about loss and memory that poured straight from my soul. Jocelyn showed zero interest for once, which should have been my first clue. I submitted my work, my heart pounding with hope. The day the results came, my world shattered. I hadn't even placed. But Jocelyn won. She submitted a portfolio of stunning, mature work that the local paper raved about. I stood frozen in the school hall, staring at the winning entry displayed on a monitor. It was my work, every single piece. Slightly altered in color, but undeniably, heartbreakingly mine. I ran to the principal's office, sobbing, pointing at the screen. "She stole it, that's my art," they called in Jocelyn. She looked at me with such profound pity it was chilling. She brought her own sketchbook, filled with concept sketches and drafts of the winning pieces. She cried delicate, perfect tears and said, "Katie, I'm so sorry you're upset. I know you wanted this, but you can't just claim things that aren't yours." My history of lies, carefully curated by her, preceded me. I was labeled jealous, unstable. My own father, when I showed him my original sketches, sighed. "Katie, maybe you're just imagining the resemblance. Diana says Jocelyn has been working on this for ages." That was the moment I broke. I stopped drawing. I disappeared into myself. The rest of my school years were a blur of isolation. I ate lunch alone, walked home alone. Jocelyn was the golden girl, the star. Every family dinner was a fresh torture. Diana would gush about Jocelyn's latest achievement, her art awards, her leadership roles. She'd then turn her saccharine smile to me. "And how are you doing, Katie? Making any friends?" My father would just look down at his plate, a silent accomplice to my destruction. I learned to make myself small, quiet, invisible. I thought if I could just get through it, get out, I could leave them all behind and start over somewhere I wasn't known as that girl. The one you couldn't trust. The one who made things up. I moved to a different city after graduation, got a small, unremarkable apartment and a job as a junior graphic designer. It was draining, soulless work, but it was safe. I built a shell around myself. I never dated, rarely socialized. The world saw a quiet, anxious woman. I was a ghost, just like my mother. Meanwhile, through the obligatory family emails, I knew Jocelyn had become a brilliant art director, lauded for her vision. The irony was a bitter pill I swallowed every day. She was living the life I was supposed to have, built on the bones of my talent and my spirit. I was just existing. fragile piece shattered on a Tuesday. It was Diana. Her voice was tight, clipped. "Your father's had a heart attack. It's serious. You need to come home." The world tilted. All the old resentment meant nothing in the face of possibly losing him. I drove the 5 hours back to my childhood home, my hands shaking on the wheel. The house was the same, but it felt like a museum of my own pain. And standing in the doorway, waiting for me, was Jocelyn. My stomach tightened into a knot of old, familiar dread. What fresh hell was this? Different, softer. The sharp edges were gone, her eyes were red-rimmed. "Katie," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so glad you're here." I was too stunned to speak. She stepped forward, and to my absolute shock, she pulled me into a hesitant hug. I know we have a history, a terrible one, and I am so sorry. We were kids, but that's no excuse. I was a monster. Seeing Arthur like this, it puts everything into perspective. Let me help, please. Let's do this for him." It was the performance of a lifetime. And my lonely, terrified heart, facing the potential loss of my father, wanted so desperately to believe it. I nodded mutely and let the wolf back in. Against every screaming instinct, I let her in. Jocelyn became my rock. She handled the doctors, the confusing paperwork. She brought me coffee, forced me to eat. She'd sit with me in the silent, sterile hospital room and talk about my father's improvement, no matter how small. "He was asking about you today," she'd say. "He's proud of you, you know." They were words I'd craved my entire life, delivered by my tormentor. It was the most profound psychological manipulation. She was rebuilding the trust she had destroyed, brick by brick, and I was letting her. In my vulnerability, her kindness felt like a lifeline, not the weapon I knew it to be. My father was in a medically induced coma for a week. When they began to bring him out of it, he was disoriented, drifting in and out. One evening, I was alone with him, holding his hand. His eyes fluttered open, and for a second they were clear. He focused on me, and his grip tightened. He tried to speak, his voice a dry rasp. I leaned in close, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Katie, I should have listened," he breathed. My eyes filled with tears. Then his last words before he faded again. "The blue ledger, Diana, the blue ledger." Then nothing, just the steady beep of the monitor. A cold dread trickled down my spine. A blue ledger, what did that mean? I went back to the house, my mind racing. Jocelyn was there, ever present. "You look pale," she said, her concern a practiced mask. I almost didn't tell her. But the habit of relying on her was already formed. I muttered. Dad was awake for a second. He was rambling about a blue ledger. I saw it. A flicker in her eyes, a micro-expression of pure panic gone in a nanosecond, replaced by wrinkled brow confusion. "A ledger? How strange. Probably the medication talking." "He's on heavy sedatives." But the seed was planted. For me and for her. The hunt was on, but I didn't yet know we were on opposite sides. Jocelyn became intensely, unnervingly helpful. "Let's look for it. It must be important if he mentioned it." She led a frantic, fruitless search through his home office, through the obvious places. She'd pull out files, glance at them, and shake her head. "Nothing here." She checked bookcases, shelves, everywhere a book might logically be. She was steering me, controlling the search, making sure we looked everywhere except the right place. It was a pantomime, and I was her puppet. But for the first time, I felt a sliver of doubt. Her eagerness felt performative. The blindfold she had so carefully tied around me was beginning to loosen. I waited until she left, claiming a work emergency. I went back into the office alone. The room felt different now, charged with secrets. I thought like my father. He was a man of habit, of sentiment, not a man who would hide something in plain sight. I looked at his old, heavy oak desk. There was a drawer that had always been stiff, that he'd never let me play near as a child. I wrestled with it, and with a groan, it slid open. It was empty. Disappointment washed over me. But then I ran my fingers along the bottom, a slight unevenness. I pressed, and a hidden compartment, no deeper than a book, slid open. Inside lay a single, worn, blue leather-bound ledger. My hands trembled as I opened it. These weren't business accounts. These were personal payments from Diana's private account, column after column of payments to a J. Miller, Jocelyn's last name before her mother remarried. The first entry was dated the month she moved in next door. $5,000 initial integration and social management. My blood ran cold. I kept reading. $2,000 mo ongoing status upkeep. $10,000 bonus, scholarship acquisition. The dates matched the art competition. There were notes. Ensure K's social isolation. Undermine credibility with A. I was looking at a timesheet. A receipt for my destruction. My childhood was a paid contract. The air left my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I didn't have to find her. She found me. I was still on the floor, the ledger in my lap, tears of rage and betrayal streaming down my face. Jocelyn stood in the doorway. She took in the scene, the open compartment, the blue book in my hands. All the false warmth drained from her face. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. "Well," she said, her voice flat and cold, devoid of all the fake sympathy she'd been peddling for weeks. "Aren't you the clever little girl?" The wolf was done pretending to be a sheep. "You really are as stupid as she said you were," she sneered, leaning against the doorframe, so casual in her cruelty. "Did you think I enjoyed wasting my childhood babysitting a pathetic little mouse like you? My aunt paid me, from day one. It was a job, a very well-paid internship in social manipulation. My task was to make you seem unstable, weak, and unreliable, so your father would never see you as a worthy heir. So Diana's future children, her blood, would get everything. The only problem was the old man never gave her a child, and now he's dying. So the plan evolved. I was to be your ally, your only support. So when the will is read, you'll sign everything over to me." The words didn't just hurt me, they rewrote my entire existence. Every lonely lunch, every tear-soaked pillow, every whispered rumor, every stolen dream, it was all a business transaction. The foundation of my life was a lie, poured and set by the two people who were supposed to be family. The pain was so profound it was numbing. I felt myself detach, floating above my body, looking down at the broken woman on the floor. This was the abyss. This was the end of Katie the crybaby. But from that absolute zero, something new was born. A cold, hard, crystalline fury. The sorrow was gone, burned away by the pure, undiluted truth. They thought they had broken me for good. They didn't realize they had just forged something new in the fire. They had taught me every dirty trick in the book. Now it was time for my final exam. I looked at the ghost of Jocelyn in the doorway, and for the first time I didn't see a monster. I saw a pawn, and I was ready to play the queen. My revenge wouldn't be loud or messy. It would be quiet, calculated, and perfect. It would use their own weapons against them. I let my shoulders slump again. I had a role to play, one last performance for my biggest fan. I let my body go limp. I let the tears fall again, but now they were tools. I looked up at Jocelyn, my face a mask of shattered defeat. "You're right," I whispered, my voice trembling with a faked, broken sob. "I am pathetic. I can't fight anymore. I just want it to stop. The pain, it's too much. Tell me what to sign. Just make it all stop." I saw the triumph flash in her eyes. She bought it. She thought her victory was complete. She gave me a condescending pat on the head. "Smart girl. It's easier this way." She had no idea that the real game had just begun, and I was now the one writing the rules. I became the perfect victim. I was docile, compliant. I let Jocelyn and Diana comfort me. I secretly enabled audio recording on my phone, leaving it in my pocket or strategically placed on a table during every conversation. I'd bait them playing dumb, feeding their arrogance. "So, you've been planning this since I was 7? I asked, my voice small, and Diana, smug and assured, would elaborate. "It was a long-term investment, Catherine. I needed to secure my future. You were simply in the way." Click, I had it. I asked Jocelyn about the scholarship. "You must have been so clever to copy my work so perfectly." She laughed. "It wasn't hard. You were so trusting." Click. I gathered every piece of evidence, a digital arsenal. My father was finally stable, awake, and lucid. The doctors said we could have a short, calm visit. I knew it was time. I arranged for them to come to the hospital room, Jocelyn and Diana, with the documents ready for me to sign. I stood by my father's bedside, my hand on his. He was weak, but his eyes were clear. They walked in, a parade of false concern. Diana held a leather folder. "Arthur, it's so good to see you awake," she simpered. "Catherine has been so brave. She's ready to make things easier for everyone." The audacity of it, in that sterile room, took my breath away. Jocelyn held out the pen. "Just sign here, Katie, it's over." I looked at the pen, then at her. I straightened my spine. The quiet, broken woman vanished. "You're right," I said, my voice clear and strong, filling the room. "It is over." I pulled out my phone. "I'd like you both to hear something, a recording of your business plan." I pressed play. Their own voices filled the sterile air, detailing the conspiracy, the payments, the humiliation. The color drained from my father's face, then hardened into granite. Diana looked like a trapped animal. Jocelyn just stood, frozen, the pen still extended, her perfect world imploding in a spectacular public crash. The silence after the recording ended was deafening. My father found a strength I hadn't seen in years. He looked at Diana, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "Get out! You are nothing to me. You will be hearing from my lawyers." He then turned to Jocelyn. "And you are a parasite. Get out of my family's life." Security was called. They were escorted out. In the days that followed, I unleashed my digital arsenal. The recordings and scanned pages of the Blue Ledger were sent to Jocelyn's employer, the art competition board, and every industry contact she had. Her career, built on my stolen art, evaporated overnight. The truth was finally my weapon. They taught me that my life was a canvas they could paint on. They used colors of sorrow, of betrayal, of lies. For years, I let them. But a canvas can be repainted. The story of Catherine Archer is no longer about the bully or the wicked stepmother. It's about the woman who picked up the brush. I used the darkness they gave me to add depth, the pain to add contrast. And now, I'm finally painting with my own colors. My first solo exhibition opens next month. The centerpiece is called The Blue Ledger. My father will be in the front row. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. And my life is my masterpiece.